And we're off. So welcome everyone to Google Forms for dynamic assessment and feedback. And if you're joining us today, I'd love to give you the link to our slides that we're using, bit.ly/forms-IU14, all lowercase. My name is Lyn Hilt, and it's nice to see some familiar faces joining us today in this session. I am a program administrator at Berks County Intermediate Unit in the Office of Professional Development and Curriculum. I'm also a Google certified trainer, and I've been working in that space for quite some time, so it's nice to be able to share my interests and knowledge around G Suite with you. Google Forms, of course, is a popular way to gather feedback and use for lots of different assessment purposes outside of even just the quiz feature. So we're going to take a look at a lot of those different options today. If you're brand new to Google Forms, and I know some of you might have experience using it in the past, but I'd just like to give a little bit of background if you're brand new. It's essentially a web-based feedback collection platform. You can create any type of tool using forms to gather any type of feedback that you're looking for. So you're not limited to quizzes and things of that nature. There's a lot of creative ways of using Google Forms out there. Since Forms was updated a few years ago, you can view all of the student responses or the participant responses right inside Google Forms, or you can link to the sheet. If you're a long time attender of my sessions, you know I forget to click close captioning right away. So you can view everything right within the form responses, or if you want to do a more detailed data analysis, you can send out the responses to a Google Sheet and look at them that way. And there's lots of exporting options as well if you need to take that data and do something else with it. Like if you need a CSV file to upload to your student information system, or if you need it in Excel for some reason. So there's lots of ways to handle the data once you receive it. Just like all the other apps in G Suite, it is collaborative, which means you can add co-creators to your form. In this time when we're all kind of learning best strategies and workflows for online learning, I like to remind people that we don't have to do these things on our own. If you teach in a department or if you co-teach with a special education teacher, these are the times when it's nice to be able to seamlessly share a file and co-create it together. If you're working in a team situation and all third grade teachers are assessing students similarly, why not co-create a form for them or divide and conquer the creation process? If you're brand new to Forms, there's a link at the bottom. You can click and it kind of details what Forms is and what it can do for you. So there are lots of creative ways that educators are using Google Forms. They are gathering important information. So it could be anything from the daily check-in that you might be using with your students during online learning time. Some schools have instituted a check-in, an attendance procedure. Just follow whatever your district is asking you to do. But aside from an attendance check-in, you could even survey students for how they're feeling. How are things going for you? Are you understanding the LMS that we have set up? Are you able to find things? How can I support you? So doing more of like a perception data survey. Surveying parents and guardians is really important right now, trying to figure out if what we're doing is working for them and their families, if the schedules are working, if anything's confusing. This is a time when you could use a quick form to gather that information. Sometimes we think about using forms for logs and record keeping. Right now, I know there's a lot of literacy teachers who'd log kids to be able to track the books that they're reading or the graphic novels and the magazine articles and just kind of keep track of their reading experiences. And so forms can serve as logs. And I've seen some creative uses of that as well. Forms can be built to serve as little mini lessons or mini activities. So because of the things that you can bring into a Google form, images, videos, you can encourage students to interact with some kind of content and then answer questions about it or write a response. And you can keep that all in one neat and tidy space inside a form. And more creative endeavors, I've seen things like students writing choose your own adventure stories with Google Forms, using some of the next level features of forms that involve conditional branching, where they tell the form to move in a certain direction based on a person's answer. So I do have some slides at the end of the session all about Google Forms 102 if you're interested in taking it to the next level. Then the majority of the ways that I've seen teachers use forms is to get that feedback on what students know and what they're able to do. So it's great to assess prior knowledge if you want to find out before beginning a new unit or lesson, what do kids already know about this, so that you can focus on what they don't know. Then, of course, designing quizzes and tests. And there are a variety of question types that you can design into your form. So multiple choice, short answer, check boxes, scales, and we'll take a look at all of those options when we go out live and build a form. They've recently added file uploads as well. This is a very useful tool if you're not in a situation where you can easily have your students submit something through Google Classroom or similar LMS, or if you want parents to upload something on students' behalf, you could build a form and include the file upload feature. So we'll check that out. There are self-scoring options now built into Google Forms quizzes. We're definitely going to check that out because it provides you with that time-saving, efficient measure where once students click submit on the form, they can get their feedback right away for any type of objective questions that you included that had a right or a wrong answer. So they can get that immediate feedback when they're finished. Here are some examples of forms I've collected over the years. The example of the reading log is listed in the top left. That's one of the earliest examples of forms if you recognize old forms. The middle is how I became a pirate. You have the video from that David Shannon and Melinda Long book in there. Lots of authors are offering read alouds right now on YouTube, and you could grab that link, put it inside the form, and then talk through students through the questions, the comprehension questions that you want them to answer or write in response to. I've seen forms used for rubric work, just simple rubrics. If your students are sharing projects with one another and you want them to be able to rate each other in terms of a peer gallery walk or a peer evaluation, you can do that with the scaled questions. And there are ways to set up check boxes where you can have multiple correct answers. And even for the littles, if they're still working on their basic literacy skills, or for English learners, you could use images to support pretty much everything in your form, including images in the answers, images in the question text, and images just to support a section of questions. So don't underestimate the power of that visual support that you can add to a Google form too. Here are some more examples. That one got fuzzy. The kind of the ultimate in creativity for Google Forms is when you create a digital escape room with Google Forms. Now, if you have some upper grade students or students who are very interested in breaking out, if you've done Breakout EDU or similar, you can design something like that using the conditional formatting. And this link has examples of how you would build that out. It essentially takes students through a learning experience where they have to find answers to questions that will unlock the form and give them freedom from the activity. You'll notice as you're building from now on, and you might have noticed the past year or so, that quizzes are getting smarter. And what that means is when you start putting your question in, for example, if you type, "What day of the week is it?" Google Forms will recommend answers that can automatically fill for you. So the recommended answers would be Monday through Friday and Saturday and Sunday. And so it's trying to use its intelligence built in, its Google search capabilities to help you build forms faster and more efficiently. So how does this all work? Well, it's kind of like a three-part process is the way I think about it. In that original forms editor, it always starts out with the purple, which is why I went with the purple theme today. You build out your questions, and if you are designing it as a self-scoring quiz, that is also where you tell the form what the correct answers are. So we'll look at how to do that. Then you can view your responses directly inside the quiz in that forms editor. You use the little preview eyeball to generate a URL that you would then share with whoever's going to take your form. So you want to share the live view link with your respondents, not your editing link. So we'll make sure you know how to do that. And or you might be putting this right into Google Classroom for your students, and you can add it right from your drive. The other option is to take your responses and build a Google Sheet to send them out to so you can view them in a spreadsheet mode. So that's essentially how these operations work together. And inside the form builder, there are a couple of icons that you should get to know. The toolbar is essentially all right here. Everything you need to add to your form is in this little sidebar, and it follows you around as you're building out your form. The first button is to add a new question. A new feature they recently added is that you now have the ability to import a question. Now, sadly, this does not mean you can import it from a PDF test that you already have or a Word test. You can import a question from another Google form. So if you had a quiz last year that you were distributing to students and you essentially wanted to recreate that or pull some questions from it, but you didn't want to make a full-blown copy, this is how you would do that. You can also import questions from forms that are shared with you as a collaborator. So if one of your colleagues creates a form and you want to borrow questions from it and they add you as a creator, then that's how you can do that. You can really keep your forms well organized with titles and descriptions. So if you're using different headings and different segments of the form that you want students to pay attention to, take advantage of those titles. And for images, you can upload images that you have. You can go into a Google search to find an image. I think a lot of teachers use images that relate to things in their content, maybe things that students are learning to label or identify in picture form. And then you can pull in a YouTube video, conduct a YouTube search from there. And kind of a next step in form work is sections. If you've ever taken a Google form that leads you from page 1 to page 2 to page 3, that form has been built with sections. And you can show at the bottom of the form how far along in the process the test taker or the student is in that space. If you would like to see the actual types of questions in action, you can click this link. What types of questions can you include in a form? I'll show you that. It is a form itself. You don't have to complete it, but it's just generating the types that you can see. So this is short answer. This is long answer. Here's multiple choice. Here's check boxes. So you can get a feel for what it looks like. This is drop down from a list where you're actually inputting the responses and someone's choosing that. Here's the upload option. Please upload a photo of a puppy. When you utilize the file upload process, all the files that are uploaded by people will be saved in a special Google Drive folder for you. So it's not just going to be totally unorganized, it's going to be right in a special folder. Here's the scale question. There are a couple of new grid features where if you're attempting to schedule something like class meetings, you could use days of the week, morning, afternoon, evening kind of thing. So this is great for surveying across a grid. Here's the one with check boxes as well. date and time you can enter. And this is an example of something I have listed under Google Forms 102, but it has to do with response validation. So this ties in with the Google Forms digital breakout activities. Solve this riddle. I'm tall when I'm young and I'm short when I'm old. What am I? So if I'm trying to solve this riddle and I guess incorrectly, maybe I'll guess pencil. That is the incorrect answer. So I didn't unlock the code, but I actually prompted this with a little clue. You might buy a Yankee blank for your aunt for Christmas this year, candle. And now I can see it's correct, and now I can move on in the form. So that's condition response validation. So we'll look at that too. Another slide just about file uploads. If you're going to be using that with your students or with your families, this is what it looks like. You can set a maximum number of files. You can choose a maximum file type or the maximum file size and indicate a type of file. Maybe you only want documents uploaded. Maybe you only want images or only PDFs. So you control all of that from your end. And these are all the types of files that can be uploaded. So what I think most of you probably came for is to learn about forms as quizzes and how that works. This slide has just some bullet points to get started, and then I'm going to go out to the web and show you how to do that. But essentially, if you're brand new, Forms has a couple places where you can get started. If you go to forms.google.com, that'll take you to your Forms home space. You can always start with a new form from Google Drive. So here I am in my Drive, and that new button, Forms, is under the More category. And then here is Google Forms. Now, if you've not ever looked really closely at this menu, there is a side arrow out to the right from Google Forms. And this is where you can choose a blank form, or you can start from a template. I'm going to go to the template gallery first, just to show you. Sometimes when you come to this gallery, it defaults to your school district gallery, and oftentimes there aren't anything any items saved in there. So just don't forget, click on general, because these are the templates that are pre-built by the Google folks for you to use or look at. There is one called a blank quiz under Google for Education templates, exit tickets, assessments. Any of these can be completely edited and updated for your use. They have personal ones. I just used this find a time to find a time to meet with the middle school principals. And then there's some work ones, order requests, job applications. I've seen career and business teachers use this or something similar to help students practice filling out job applications that they might encounter when they're doing online work, learning to apply for jobs. So there's lots of examples there. Blank quiz is super helpful because if you are choosing to use any of the scoring features, the self-scoring guides, this has already been set up to run as a quiz. And I'll talk about the difference there. All right, so let me pop back up here. So you'll start a new form, and we'll do that. You can choose, like I said, the quiz template under the education category. And if for some reason you're not sure if your form is designed to run as a quiz or not, all of those settings are found under the main quiz settings. And in form settings, you have three components. You have general, presentation, and quizzes. So that third section of settings is all about your quiz options. One thing I like to recommend to people is if they're using it for graded purposes and it's not just open-ended types of perception data, collect your student username somehow. Collect their email address. It will collect their school Google address. so that you can ensure the person who took the quiz says who they are. Now, can we control who takes the quiz when they're at home? Not really, but at least they are probably logged into their school Google account. For each question, as you build out a quiz, you will need to then click on the answer key button. This is sometimes hard to find, which is why I'm going to show it to you. You click on answer key, which is at the bottom left of the question, and then you choose the correct answer or answers, and you assign point values. So you have to do that to be able to make sure it runs properly. And then you can toggle back and forth with the edit question button. There is a section in the Google Help Center called Create a Quiz with Google Forms. So if you need more help after this, you can certainly visit that page. It has a nice step-by-step space. So the question is there a way to keep students from sharing the work? I have had a student type up a doc and share it with their friends. So this is a trickier question, especially given our circumstances now. I know that sometimes in class, teachers would institute a makeshift password with their forms. And what that means is that they would set a question on page 1, section 1 of the form, and it would say, what is the password for this form? And the teacher would physically say to the students, the password is apple, and you need to type the word apple. And as soon as she was walking around and making sure that everyone finished logging in and getting past the password, she would change the password on the back end, so that even if students copied and pasted the link to the quiz and sent it to their friends, that they would not be able to get in the form because the password would have been changed. Now, in terms of copying everything and pasting it into a doc and having that kind of time on their hands, as soon as you're done distributing the form, you can turn off accepting responses so that the other students couldn't get in. This is my advice with our current situation. I know that some schools are being directed to give like full-on grades. I would not trust a lot of the assessments given out in this manner for full-on high-stakes grades because of the situation where we're not physically with them to be able to manage that. The only other advice that I have is to take advantage of locked form quizzes, but the only people who can do that are people whose students are using managed Chromebooks from the district. So if your district distributed managed devices to students that are Chromebooks, then you could take advantage of locked mode forms. But if your students are using their own devices, you can't manage that, even if they're logging into their school accounts. So I would rely on this. I'd use my best judgment in terms of what I'm putting in there and just keep an open mind about who or how they might be completing this. Obviously, if they're not using locked forms, they probably have the option to Google the answers. So I would take this opportunity to design assessments that have more critical thinking questions and require more than just regurgitation of answers, because it's really easy to regurgitate answers. It's not as easy to apply what they've learned to a written response or to ask to show like some kind of different way of understanding. All right. Yeah. So like Joseph's, ask them to write about it, ask them to write essays. It's harder to replicate that and share it. And if kids know the question in advance, I'm not entirely sure that makes it that less of an issue if you're asking them to apply what they've learned versus just check the right answer. So speaking of locked mode quizzes, again, only students who are using district managed devices, Chromebooks, and there are some requirements. The operating system has to be up to date, 75 or higher. They have to be logged in, of course, to their student account. But when you institute that in the settings, you can choose enable locked mode. And what that does is when students start the form, it will lock their screen and they can only complete the form at that time. And then once they click submit, it essentially unlocks their space. So that is certainly helpful in classroom situations. It may be beneficial to you in out of school situations, but it depends on the devices you have and your students have and the management of them. Something you might have noticed if you are a Google Classroom user is to check out the ability to build a quiz right from Google Classroom as well. So now when you go to your classwork page, under your Create button, there's a list of things you can add. You can add an assignment, you can add a question, a material, and now a quiz assignment. And really that just kind of saves you a step. It saves you a step from going out to forms, building something there and attaching it in Classroom, because it's going to just build a form for you in that assignment space, and then you'll edit it in forms and it'll keep everything attached. So if you are planning on including a quiz or a form as part of an assignment in Google Classroom, you now have the option to just do that right from Classroom. I wanted you to experience a quiz on your own if you've not experienced it from the student side in terms of being able to get that instant feedback. If you're following along with my slides, I have the quiz linked here for you, but I'm also going to put it in the chat if you would like to take the form. So let's do that. So if you want to grab that link, and if you would like to take that quiz, it's very simple. I mean, you might not know the answers because it's just googly trivia, but it looks like this. You don't have to do it, but you can watch what happens when people try it. So this is set up with just the questions and answer choices. There's one correct answer, and as the student, you can see how many points each question is worth. And when you're finished, if you could, ask it to show you your feedback right away. So there are a couple of responses coming in. I had used this before in another training, but as some of you in the room complete this form, this number should increase in real time. And on the teacher end, we just toggled one. So on the teacher end, we can see, I'm going to go back to actual size. I think I was zoomed in. We can see the total points distribution for the class. So we can see the average score, the median score, they keep coming in. And this will adjust based on the responses that come in real time. As a class, I can see the frequently missed questions. So as a teacher, I will know, oh, I might need to address that again or give some more supportive content to help students learn that. I just put first name on here, but you wouldn't have to do that if you're collecting email addresses. And then question by question, I can see how the class did. And what it looks like on your end is, let me just quick do mine. Even though you're looking at it, but if you're not taking it, I want to be able to show you. I actually built this with some feedback. So now it says a forms quiz for you. How'd you do? View your score. I can see I got one right. It was not very good on my part. And then I can see my answer. I can see the correct answer. And there's little feedback snippets from the teacher like, oh, sorry. Now you can leave very specific feedback. You can tell students if they were incorrect, what they should study to try to remedy that understanding, or an activity they could do to try to strengthen that skill that they had incorrect on the quiz. If you answered this question correctly, I actually linked to the first video that was shared on YouTube, which was a zoo video. So that was a little reward for you if you were correct there. And so you can see the little feedback. So now I have those correct answers. Just know that as a teacher, you do not have to tell kids the correct answer. So if it's a quiz where you would like them to see how they did, but you don't necessarily want to give them that correct answer because maybe they're going to take the assessment again, you can set that up. So let's take a look at how we do all of that good stuff. Oh, we got 23. I was trying to get our average to 2 out of 4. everyone. I probably brought it down with my quick post. So sorry about that. All right, so you have that example. You can use that and share with colleagues if they've never seen it. So let's make a quiz. So I'm going to start here at the Google Forms template. I'm going to choose blank quiz. And this is what we see here. We have our space where we get started. It gives me a demo title, which I can just click and I can change to today's, is it April 8th? Sure, April 8th quiz. And actually I was gonna do a Harry Potter quiz. And that can change my title at the top left as well. So wherever you see something pre-populated, you can just click and type over it. Now, purple is the default. If you would like to play around with the theme of your quiz, go ahead and click Customize Theme. It's the little art palette there. And in terms of theme options, you can choose an image for your header. You can upload an image. You can use one of the pre-built themes that they have. I don't think there's a wizard theme, but maybe I'll choose this one. They have a lot of illustrations for different seasons and things like that. A lot of us are probably dreaming of things like outdoor freedom, so maybe I'll choose fireworks. And then what it does is it looks at the picture that you chose and it adjusts the color based on the theme. If you don't like that, you can add your own custom color. But you can also upload a custom image. So if you have a header that you want to use for your school or a mascot or something like that, you can use that as well. The font style, they give you a couple of different font styles, not to get too crazy, but basically you get playful or basic or fancy. And that's as easy as it is to change your theme. Now we're here and we're ready to do our question, our first question. So what is Harry's mother's name? And what you see here is the first one by default is multiple choice. If you want to change the type of question, you simply click here, and that's where you get all of those options for question type. And you can just click and choose a new question at any time, question type at any time. I'm going to stick with multiple choice, and I'll give some options for Harry's mother's name. And as you can see, you can either tab. When you tab, it goes to the next option for form creation. If you hit enter, it will pop you down to another option that you can write a name for. Now, here's where we were talking about answer key. Right now, even though I built a question, it doesn't have any points associated with it. For each question, for each box, I have to go into answer key mode. So I'll just click here. I have to assign points in the upper right. So it's just be 1 point. And then I have to choose the correct answer for my question. If I do want to either build my kids up by giving some positive feedback, or if they had the answer incorrect, if I want to lead them to some information to help them learn more, this is where I do that, add answer feedback. When I do that, it brings up a whole new window, and actually you do incorrect feedback in the same space as correct feedback. You just have to watch which one is highlighted. So the incorrect answer, sorry, that is not his mother's name. Reread chapter 1 of the Sorcerer's Stone to find out. And I'm not even sure if that's where that is, but I'm guessing. Or you could have them watch a video if they were incorrect to learn more. You could link to something to help them learn more. For the correct answers, yes, Lily's patronus is a doe. And then click save. Now in here, I'm gonna let somebody in here. I think that worked. In here, you can now see in answer key mode, the number of points available, the correct answer, if you decide to add feedback or not for correct answers and incorrect answers. And if you need to make any changes, click the little pencil, the edit pencil. If you want to remove them entirely, delete them. When you are done in answer key mode, click done, because now I'm back to editing mode. All other key things at the bottom of each question. If you want to do several of the same type of question, you could always just duplicate it instead of adding a new question each time. So if I was going to do essentially the same question, the question, see, this is how smart Google is becoming. The suggested answer for this, because it says what is Harry's father's name, could be Harry, the Prince of whatever he is now, the Duke of something. He was the Duke of Sussex, I guess, but now he's out. They're suggesting that the correct answer is Charles, Prince of Wales, but it's not. All right, so what is Harry's dad's name? James. All right, so now same thing. Now, because I duplicated it though, it actually duplicated the same answer key as well. So I'm gonna have to go in there. I'm gonna have to change the correct answer, and I'm gonna have to change or remove that feedback. So just remember that when you duplicate something that you've already done the question answer key for, it will duplicate everything. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not good. All right, so now we have the delete key, we have the trash can, and you can see there's this blue bar on the side when I'm manipulating this question in particular. This one doesn't have the blue bar now. If I want to go back and make changes, click inside it. Now I'm in editing mode with the blue bar. The delete button is the trash can, and here is the required button. That's when you're taking a quiz or a form and you see that little red asterisk by the question, that means you need to complete this question or you can't submit the form. So if you have questions that are required by students, then you must check that. And then the triple dots down here are even more options. So if you want to show a description for the question, if you want to institute Google Forms 102 and you want to move kids through a form based on their answers, you can do that. I'm not sure if I'll have time to show you that today. And you can also shuffle the order of the options. If you entered them a certain way, but then you want to shuffle it for students, you can do that as well. So for adding a new question, it will default to the type of question that you just added. So you can drop down and you can change it to be something else. What was your favorite Harry Potter movie? Is this the same choice as your, as your favorite book? Why or why not? Now, this actually, as I was designing it, turned into more of a long answer paragraph response versus a short answer. So I just went ahead and changed that after the fact. Now, if you put something like this in your form, you will not be able to designate a correct answer because all students are going to enter something different. You can still designate a point value, and after the quiz is self-scored, it will go ahead and it will automatically score this question and this question. And this will be something that you as the teacher go in, you review the answer, and you give the point value for. So it can still handle all of the objective scoring for you. And then you would just go ahead and update the final score based on the short answer piece. To add any kind of media to your space, here is your add image button. You can upload an image that you have, take an image straight out of your webcam, add the link, go to Google Photos, go to Google Drive, or go to Google Image Search. So I will look for an image that might be related to my topic, and maybe I would try to find a question that, here we go, see what these guys are up to. So I would say, here's my image. Now I'm just putting this image in on its own. There is no question attached to this image, okay? And so I want to show you specifically image for questions 3 to 4, because I want to show you specifically how you might do this differently. If it comes time for you to drag and drop your questions in different orders, there are teeny tiny 6 dots, and that is how you grab and drag them in different orders. Okay, so I'm going to go back to actual size. I'm going to say, add a new question down here under this guy. So now I want to say question 3. Maybe you want to number your questions too, because they're not always numbered when you do that. Which house wizards are shown in the image above? It would be, of course, Slytherin or Gryffindor or Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff. And the other question I'm going to add is a short answer. Name one soul. Oh, maybe that would give it away. It's good this is pretend here. Okay, so what I'm essentially doing is I have a large image and I am referencing it for 2 questions that belong to it. However, if you ever choose the shuffle the question order, what might happen is it's going to separate that large image from a question. So that's where that gets dangerous. Hold on one second. I have to tell my daughter to turn down her. So what you can do if you want to make sure that the image stays tied to the question is, in this instance, let me zoom in for you. I'm going to write a new question. And right to the right-hand side, there's the image button I would use to attach an image right to a question so that they never get separated. So if right now it's thinking and doesn't want to do what I want it to do. But now you can see that this should be might be because I'm zoomed in crazy. Google image search. So I'm going to search for Gryffindor crust. See if I can get up with that. There we go. That one's good. Oops. Insert. So now I have the image with the question and I can change the alignment. It's a very large one here, but if I grab that bottom box, I can make it a little bit smaller and more manageable so it's not taking up so much of my form. And now I can list my questions from there. So if you want to attach an image to a question, go to the right of the question text, click that. If you want to add an image to an answer, go to the right of the answer text and click that image icon. So that's a little bit confusing because there's so many different images you can choose. To the right of the answer, to the right of the question, or off to the main menu, and that will just put a large image into your space, okay? So for videos then, you can search for a video. You can find the direct URL of the video that you'd like to add. And who knows what all of these are, but I'm not going to put one in. So that's how you find a video. And sections then will create these different, so book 2, we'll have a whole new set of questions. Now, at any time, if you want to see what your form looks like to the student, then go ahead and click the eyeball and just go out there. This is what it looks like live. And this is what students will see when they're taking the quiz. And you can see if things are in the correct order for you and if you had everything designed the way that you wanted it to. The reason they see a next button and not a submit is because you added that second question, or second section rather. And the reason I can't move on is because I made a required question. And that's exactly what will happen. If you don't make required questions, your students can move through before they submit. But if you do make them required, they won't have to. All right, so right now, these are my questions. Let's go into those settings now and make sure things are set up the way we want them to. So in our settings, here in the general collection space, I'm going to collect email addresses of my students because I want to make sure that their usernames are being tagged to their responses. Here, you can restrict the form to only students inside your domain. If you are surveying parents or people in the public, you need to uncheck that, or else they're not going to be able to access the form. And you may want to consider getting rid of this if you're surveying anonymously. Obviously, you don't want to collect any kind of identifying info. So these options will vary based on the purpose of your form. You might want to limit students to one response. And if you do that, it will require a sign-in, and it tells you that right here. This is always confusing for people because once students click submit, they have a very short period of time, if you check this box, where they can actually go back in and fix an answer. This is a scenario where if I'm taking the Harry Potter quiz and I click submit and then I think, oh my gosh, I forgot to list this really important detail, I can click edit my responses in that moment and I can go back and make a change. I cannot think about something 2 days from then and go back and make changes. I can allow students to see the summary of the responses. This is useful for things like student voting, class voting, if you want to vote about the next topic you want to study in your online learning. It's not particularly useful if you want for sharing academic data. So you have to save any changes you make there in the settings. Here's section 2, presentation style. Do you want to show students how far along they are in the section work? Do you want to shuffle the question order? And do you want to have a tailored confirmation message? Thanks for taking the quiz. Don't forget to complete assignment, boy, it would be good if I could spell, for afterwards, or whatever it is you want to direct them to do. You can do that there. And then here are all of your quiz settings. If this is not checked, if you're ever in a form and you can't figure out where that answer key button is, it's because this is probably not checked. So make sure that it is functioning as a quiz. Here is where you would turn on locked mode if your students are managing Chromebooks and you want to restrict them from opening other tabs. And here is how you decide when to release the grade. In the example quiz I gave you, I chose immediately after submission. And if you don't choose that and you choose later, what that means is that you can send out students quiz grades, but it will all go through email collection. So what that means is they will receive an email notification in their Google email that the quiz has been scored. If your kids don't have access to their Google email, that is not a helpful feature. So I think for most people doing low-key assessments, they just release the feedback right away. You can allow students to see their missed questions, correct answers or not, and point values or not. So at any time, you can turn those on or off, and then click Save. So there is a send button here, and the send button is useful for if you want to directly email the quiz to somebody. If you have a list of 25 parent emails that you typically copy and paste into different email forms, you could certainly do that. You could include the form in the email. Here's where you would get the direct link to the form as well, and you can shorten it up. It's not super short, but it is a shortened version of that. And then if you actually want to embed the form in another website or on a blog or something, that's where that third space is. So this is the embed code, and you can determine how wide and how high it will be. So those are your options for the send button. What I mostly always do is just click on the eyeball and then I copy and paste that link wherever it needs to go. Or if you're in Google Classroom, you can go to your, wherever you're adding things. Again, here's that create quiz assignment. And essentially right now, it just created me a blank quiz. Now, one thing you can trigger in this platform as well is grade importing. So it will actually import any scores from students' assessments in the quiz and bring it into your grade book, which is nice. You can also turn on locked mode. But let's say you already created a form and you want to just add it to an assignment. So take the Harry Potter quiz. I would just go to add from my Google Drive, and then I would find the Harry Potter quiz that I created and click add. And it will add there as the version that students need, not as the editing mode that a collaborator would need. So speaking of collaborator, we want to make sure we know how to add other people to our form for helping. So there's a whole menu of other stuff here in Google Forms that we can do. We can make a copy of form, of course, trash it. We can print it. Here is where we would add another user to be able to edit it, not to take the form, but to be able to make changes, add questions, add feedback, and things like that. Okay, so that's here under add collaborators. It's a little bit different than all of the other apps because the other apps have a share button and this one doesn't really have that. It's add collaborators. For Google Forms 102, there are a number of add-ons that work together with Google Forms to do more with the data. Choice Eliminator will remove choices after they've been chosen. Form Publisher will put the actual form in more of a print-looking format if you're sending home paper pencil activities for your students during this time. So there's a lot of options there. I just wanted to mention them. I'm not going to have time to demo them. But here in Google Forms 102, I did list some options for add-ons and enhancements, and there's been lots of smart people like Adam who've written their recommendations on different add-ons to use, so you can check those out. We talked briefly about the response validation, but this is where you set rules for your form. So you can say, for example, if you want students to enter a response and it has to be a number, you can set a range of a minimum value and a maximum value. If you must enter a text response and not a number, you can force it to do that. So you can learn there how to set up rules for your form. That's all under response validation. Then when you're ready to look at some more intense uses of Google Forms, one of those options is to take the sections that you build and actually move students through the form based on their responses. So it's branching movement throughout the form. This is an example of what that looks like in real life. It's a very lame example, but just so you could see how it works. So what is your favorite spring activity? I love watching the flowers bloom. So now I'm going to click next. And my next activity has to do with spring flowers because that's what I chose. So if you're looking to bring student voice and choice into it, this is a great way. Maybe my favorite spring activity is outside play, and I click that. Now I have to write about outside play and what my favorite sport is. So it's a way to incorporate some movement, but also make sure that you're kind of meeting students' needs that way. So that's a good time. Then we have Equatio. Equatio is for the math and science teachers out there where you can actually build math notations in your form question text. It is free for teachers. I wrote equation. Premium Equatio, free for teachers. And that includes in Google Forms because premium version includes forms, free version does not. Use this link if you want to sign up for it because then it will know that you're a teacher with a verified account and you'll get premium access. There are a couple of different additional resources there for you, cheat sheets, resource site. Again, the slides for today are at bit.ly/formsiu14. And I'm really happy you came out today. Of course, we want you to complete the form so you get your Act 48 credit and give us some feedback on how it went and what future offerings we can have for you. That's at bit.ly/cc virtual feedback. And we've been getting a lot of great suggestions for future topics, so please complete that for us. And don't forget to visit. Hopefully you're all winding down soon into vacation mode, but if you have a spare moment, check out our Core Connections to Virtual Learning website and plan to join us next week for some more offerings. There might be one or two tomorrow. I know we're not doing any on Friday. So bit.ly/cclearniu14. And don't forget to reach out to me if you need anything, Lyn Hilt at berksiu.org. And hopefully we'll see you next time. Again, I got the slides from Slidesmania. They did awesome, and I had fun with that one. So we will see you again soon. Do we have any questions? I'm going to stop recording, but then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.